What's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and with week one starting today, I'm going to give you guys my week one power rankings. Now, obviously, these are subject to change throughout the season. These aren't obviously going to be the power rankings of, week 17 or 18 or anything like that. This is week one power rankings, and this is my opinion. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so there has to be a team that comes in at 32, and that team is going to be the Patriots for me. They drafted Drake May in the first round of the draft. Their future looks bright, but week one of the season, Drake May's not starting. Jacoby Brissett's playing, and is Jacoby Brissett some world beater? No. He's an average backup at best. The receiving core isn't anything special. It's got a lot of young talent, a lot of upside, but day one, is it going to be that great? Probably not. Pop Douglas had a really good rookie season, but he's a smaller receiver, no number one receiver by any means. Jalen Polk, they drafted in the second round. Really good player. Is he going to be that productive day one? Maybe not. Javon Baker's had a really good preseason, a really good training camp. But again, a rookie. They're relying on two rookies, and they're relying on Pop Douglas, who is a second-year player. That's not a great receiving core, at least right as of this moment. Their offensive line is a work in progress, like an extreme work in progress. Besides Michael Waynu, it's a bit of a struggle. Now, their defense is what really saves them and what could win them some games. Christian Gonzalez is one of the best young corners who had his rookie season cut short last season. They got rid of Matt Judon, who kind of became a bit of a distraction in my opinion, so he's gone, although he was a really talented player, obviously. They got a really good safety duo in Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar, but overall, with a new coaching regime coming in, the Bill Belichick era is over. I think the Patriots are going to struggle early on, and so they are 32 for me. Coming in at number 31, I have the Carolina Panthers, who have definitely been struggling the past couple of years. Bryce Young definitely had a rookie season from hell, and I've never really seen a team seem to actively try to have a rookie quarterback fail like Carolina's last regime did. Thankfully, they got a new coach in Dave Canales, who is a really good quarterback developer. So I'm really banking on Bryce Young having a bounce-back season. They brought in Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen's still there. They drafted Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo's still there, who a lot of people forget about. They really invested on that offensive line, bringing in two guards in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Hopefully, Ike Ekwonu has a bounce-back season. Their defense has really struggled, though. They don't have much of a pass rush. Derek Brown's there, yes, but is he a pass rusher? Not so much. He's more of a run stopper. J.C. Horn, is he going to be able to stay healthy throughout the season? They lost Brian Burns. They lost Frankie Louvu. They lost Jeremy Chin. A lot of losses on that defense, and although that offense is going to be a lot better, in my opinion, is Bryce Young going to be able to step up? I don't know. He might still struggle early on, and midway through the season, really catch a rhythm. I think that's more likely than them being a good team early on. Just with so many changes, Bryce Young, who is a younger quarterback learning a new offense, I just think there could be some hiccups along the way. Moving on to number 30, I got the Washington Commanders, and kind of the same thing, new quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He is going to be starting week one, and he's got a really good receiving target in Terry McLaurin, but aside from that receiving core is a little shaky. They traded away Jahan Dotson to the Eagles in a bit of a bizarre trade, in my opinion. Jahan Dotson is a young receiver with a good amount of promise. Maybe he didn't have the best season last year, but I still think he was a promising young receiver. They drafted Luke McCaffrey in the draft this past year. Diami Brown's looking like he's going to get an opportunity to be a big-time contributor. They've got B-Rob, Austin Eckler, a signing who didn't look great last season, and, his best days might be behind them, but they could still get a little bit of contribution out of him. Offensive line is, definitely a work in progress. Brandon Coleman is going to be relied on heavily, a rookie from TCU. So overall, a bit of a shaky team. There's not a lot of talent. Dan Quinn's going to come in and hopefully inject some life into that defense, who desperately needs it. Emmanuel Forbes, a rookie they drafted, not this past year, but the year before. Definitely had a bad rookie season, got benched, early on. Just really small. So their defense is hopefully going to get some juice injected into them, but that offense, I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. But is it going to be a consistently good team? Probably not with Jaden Daniels year one. Coming in at number 29, similar to a lot of these other teams we've talked about so far. They got a rookie quarterback in this year's draft in Bo Nix. Sean Payton's come in. He's, really revamped that team over the past couple of years, got rid of Russell Wilson. And Bo Nix seems like a Sean Payton type of guy. He looks like he could, operate an offense similar to Drew Brees, at least in the future. Year one, I'm not too sure. They traded away Jerry Jeudy. They got Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, who I'm a really big fan of. And then they got Marvin Mims, who's a vertical slot. So they got some really intriguing weapons. Javonte Williams in the backfield. That offense is, it's solid. But again, they're relying on a rookie quarterback. And even though Bo Nix may be one of the most experienced rookie quarterbacks coming into the league, the question is he going to be the Bo Nix we saw at Auburn or the Bo Nix we saw more recently at Oregon? If he's closer to that Auburn Bo Nix, the Broncos are going to be in some real trouble. But I think Sean Payton is going to be able to get the best out of Bo Nix, sooner rather than later. They got a really good young defense with Pat Surtain leading the way. But overall, again, a rebuilding team who's, really just trying to get their footing. So I'm not expecting big things from the Broncos, especially week 1. Moving on to 28, I got the Tennessee Titans. And Will Levis has kind of taken charge of that quarterback position. He played solid last year once he took over for Ryan Tannehill. Really good, rookie debut. And then kind of struggled towards the rest of the season. But coming into this year, they brought in Calvin Ridley. They lost Derrick Henry, which is definitely a bummer. I'm a really big fan of Tajay Spears. They brought him Tony Pollard, who, I'm a little wishy-washy on. I think that's definitely going to be a split backfield between Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. Their offensive line is slowly getting better. Drafted Peter Skoronski, not last year, but the year before. Took J.C. Latham this year. Signed Lloyd Cushenberry from the Broncos. So they're piecing up this offensive line, and hopefully it's going to be able to protect Will Levis. And if that is the case, and Will Levis takes that next step, I think this could be a really good season for the Titans. But for right now, I'm a little bit scared for the Titans, so I'm gonna, reluctantly put them at 28 for now. But I think they could be a big riser as long as Will Levis takes that step in year 2. Moving on to 27, I got my favorite team, so just a little bit of a heads up. Might be some bias. I mean, a lot of people are hating on the Giants, but I do have them at 27. Now, let me explain. In 2022, the Giants, with a pretty subpar offense, went to the playoffs and won a game in the playoffs. Daniel Jones is capable of dragging a team to the playoffs. I know that they don't have Saquon Barkley now, and Saquon Barkley was a big part of that offense, but people act like Daniel Jones is some, bottom 40 quarterback in the league. I think he could, at his best, be a top 16 quarterback. We've seen in 2022, he really took care of the ball, at least a lot more than he did in all of his other years. Hopefully coming off that ACL injury, he's still able to be a little bit mobile and escape the pocket when needed. They got Malik Neighbors in the draft who can hopefully balance out that offense now that Saquon Barkley's gone. That offensive line hopefully is going to be a little bit better, or if anything, be a little bit healthier, with Andrew Thomas being one of the best left tackles in the league. Hopefully John Michael Schmitz has a bounce back season, at least because of his rookie season. He was not that great at all. Evan Neal, I'm completely out of him. I don't care about him. Moving on to that defense, though, guys like Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, that defensive line should be very, very good. And we've seen with Giants teams in the past, when the Giants are good, their defensive line is, borderline elite. And I think this defensive line could be borderline elite with those 3 players I just named. And they also got Bobby Okereke to man that middle of the defense. Hopefully Tay Banks is going to be a really good cornerback 1, and hopefully play really good against other teams' receiver ones. Other than that, the secondary is definitely pretty weak, and that's going to be probably the weakest point of this team. But overall, I think we got just too much talent to be a bottom 2 or 3 team in the league. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people. I'm not saying we're going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I think we're going to win at least 6 or 7 games, and we're going to surprise a lot of people. Moving on to 26, I got the New Orleans Saints. Now, with the Saints, my main concern is just Derek Carr. Is Derek Carr going to be able to, win you games? I don't know. They drafted Spencer Rattler to maybe be the successor to Derek Carr, but overall, it really just hinges on if Derek Carr is going to be able to play at a good level or not. You got Chris Olave, who's a good wide receiver 1, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara is back, even though he's not the same player he used to be. But that defense is also, up there in age, but it's still got some talent. And Marshawn Lattimore, Cameron Jordan, guys like that. So I think that they're a pretty experienced team to be down here at 26, but it just is really going to depend on Derek Carr if he's going to be at least average this season, and I have my doubts, especially with their tackle issues and their offensive line issues in general. Moving on to 25, though, I do got the Las Vegas Raiders. Same thing, their quarterback position is just not great at all, and even if you have a really good team around the quarterback, that quarterback doesn't, produce, it's going to be a rough season. And Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, it's going to be Gardner Minshew to start out. I wouldn't be surprised if Aiden O'Connell got some snaps in later in the season. But both of them, I'm not, too impressed with. Even though you got Devontae Adams, you got a really good tight end, two-headed monster, and Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. That offense, you got some weapons. Colt Miller is one of the most underrated tackles in the league now. Max Crosby's one of the best edge rushers in the league. Like, they got a lot of talent on this team, but I'm just not a believer in Gardner Minshew. Moving on to 24, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Same thing. Two below average quarterbacks now at this point in their career. Russell Wilson's getting the start. He's definitely not the same player he was in Seattle, and he's, just not the same player in general. He's, a fringe starter in this league now. I'm praying for Justin Fields. I hope he's, able to be a starter in this league one day. But as of right now, he's just not able to read a defense, and you can't even get a starting job over Russell Wilson. So again, it doesn't matter how good your weapons are around him. If that quarterback's not going to play well, it's going to be a tough season. Obviously, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, no matter how average that team is or even how bad that team is. I do think this year would be the year, if there is a year, this would be the year that he does have a losing season. But in all likelihood, he's going to be just above that 500 season. So, I don't know, starting out, that talent's just not there with that quarterback situation. Moving on to 23, we got the Minnesota Vikings. Same thing, an average quarterback with Sam Darnold. J.J. McCarthy is out for the season with that torn meniscus. And, if Sam Darnold... and if Kevin O'Connell can squeeze out any bit of talent out of Sam Darnold, he's going to do that. And with the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to, TJ Hawkinson is going to be back at some point this season. Like, that offense is really good. That defense is also super solid, and I'm a big fan of the head coach, Kevin O'Connell. He's my dark horse to win Coach of the Year this year. So, I'm a little bit higher on the Vikings, but with Sam Darnold at that quarterback position, you can't put him that high. I think 23 is a good spot for the Vikings as of right now, but I do think they could impress later on in the season. Moving on to 22, we got the Chargers. And the thing with the Chargers, new regime coming in with Jim Harbaugh, who is, definitely changing the culture there. They're going to be more of a run-heavy team. They drafted Joe Alt to be their right tackle. They got Rashawn Slater, Trey Pipkins on the guard position. They got a really good offensive line now, especially at tackle. And they're really just going to ask Justin Herbert to bail them out when they need to. They're going to be a hard-nosed running football team with Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, guys like that. So, I'm really liking this, the way Jim Harbaugh's, leading this franchise. But it is year one, and they don't necessarily have the talent with Keenan Allen going, Mike Williams going. Like, they just don't have that offensive talent to be a good team, even though they got one of the best quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and a pretty good defense, too, with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack on the edge, Derwin James playing safety, and then Asante Samuel, who's a pretty good cornerback one, maybe not elite, but overall a pretty good team, but that offense just doesn't have the firepower to be a playoff contender, in my opinion. Moving on to 21, we got the Arizona Cardinals, and this could be a sneaky team. Kyler Murray is going to be fully healthy, hopefully, coming off that ACL he suffered in 2022. They brought in Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a generational talent at receiver. Michael Wilson is a serviceable wide receiver too. They drafted Trey Benson in the draft this past year, who I was a really big fan of. He was my running back 1 in this past year's draft. And they also have a serviceable defense as well. It really is just going to come down to how fast that Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. connection is going to happen. And if it happens quick, I do think they could be a sneaky wild card team here in the NFC. Moving on to 20, we got the Indianapolis Colts. And this just is going to hinge on what type of quarterback we're going to see from Anthony Richardson. He had an up and down preseason, showed some flashes, but that inaccuracy is still there. He's got an amazing offense around him with, Michael Pittman being one of the better receivers in the league. Adonai Mitchell, the rookie who I was a really big fan of, they got a steal on him in the draft. Josh Downs had a really good rookie season. It's a shame that Jelani Woods is also out for the season yet again. So that tight end position is a little bit weaker, but they also got a pretty good offensive line led by Quinnen Williams, who maybe isn't the same player he used to be, but he's still an above average guard in my opinion. They also got Bernard Ryman, Braden Smith. They got a really good offensive line. Their defense got an upgrade with the addition of Leatu Latu, who was one of the more, technically sound edge rushers in the draft. Kwity Paye can hopefully take a step up. And then DeForest Buckner's consistently been one of the better defensive tackles and, doesn't necessarily get the love he deserves. Kenny Moore is one of the best slot corners in the league, in my opinion. But their outside corners are a little wishy-washy with Juju Brents and I guess Jalen Jones. Is it Jalen Jones? Is that his name? The cornerback out of A&M, I believe. Either way, it's definitely wishy-washy and a little bit, weak, but I think it's all going to come down to Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is a dark horse MVP candidate in my opinion, and if he's able to bring this team to the playoffs and even win a playoff game or two, I think he could be MVP. But he could also completely shit the bed and, be that inaccurate Anthony Richardson that we've definitely seen, especially in college. Coming in at number 19, we got the Seattle Seahawks. New coaching regime coming in. Pete Carroll, who was the head coach for a while, stepped down. And, hopefully Geno Smith can have a bounce back year. He didn't have the best year following his breakout season in 2022. DK Metcalf is still one of the better receivers in the league. Tyler Lockett can hopefully still produce at his older age. JSN is probably going to take a big step this year. I'm a big fan of JSN. Kenny Walker, Zach Charbonnet, a two-headed monster in the backfield. That offensive line is, it's solid. Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, both were injured here and there last season, can hopefully stay healthy this season. That defense is, pretty solid, especially at cornerback with Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon. You got guys like Byron Murphy, who they drafted in the first round, who had a really good preseason. Like, this team is super solid as long as Geno Smith can, play a little bit better than he did last year. Coming in at number 18, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield had a really good season last year. The big question is he going to be able to replicate that this year? They got the weapons, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I'm a big fan of Trey Palmer, and it seems like Bucs fans are as well. Rashad White's a solid running back. They also got Bucky Irving in the draft, who I was a really big fan of. And then that defense is led by Levante David, who seems to, just be able to play forever. They got one of the better safeties in the league in Antoine Winfield. So, again, a really talented team hinging on the fact that Baker Mayfield is able to replicate his, prior season. Coming in at number 17, we got the Chicago Bears. And I'm definitely really high on the Chicago Bears. I think Caleb Williams could be the next great quarterback in this league. And no rookie quarterback, especially number one overall pick rookie quarterback, has had a better supporting cast than Caleb Williams does day one. He's got one of the better receivers in DJ Moore. Keenan Allen's going to be an elite wide receiver too. Rome Odunze was arguably the best receiver in the draft. I mean, you can argue that. Definitely, a fringe generational talent at that receiver position. So they got a three-headed absolute monster at receiver. And Caleb Williams is definitely going to thrive in that offense with DeAndre Swift in the backfield. Their offensive line is also, solid enough. That defense also is led by Jalen Johnson at cornerback. They got Montez Sweat, who they, acquired last season from Washington. Jaquan Brisker. Like, this team has so much talent, and it's only going to get better throughout the years. So I'm really high on them year one with Caleb Williams, and I just think they're going to get better and better each year and even each week. Coming in at number 16, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and a lot of people just seem to be so low on Trevor Lawrence when he's still a good young quarterback in this league. Does he have his problems? Yes. Does he have, trouble hitting throws? Sure. But he's still a really good quarterback, one of the better ones in this league, despite what people are saying about him. Travis Etienne is one of the better receivers. They lost Calvin Ridley, but they brought in one of the, more intriguing wide receivers in the draft, and Brian Thomas, who was Malik Neighbors' teammate there at LSU. Brought in Gabe Davis, who is very inconsistent, but he can have some good weeks here and there. And then that defense led by Josh Allen, or Josh Hines Allen, I think he's going by now. Tyson Campbell's a really good cornerback there who doesn't get enough love. Trayvon Walker, who was a former number 1 overall pick, believe it or not, is hopefully going to have a breakout season finally. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Devin Lloyd's one of the better young linebackers in the league. Like, again, this team has a lot of talent, and Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. So I'm, pretty high on the Jaguars. I think they could make the playoffs. Coming in at number 15, we got the Cleveland Browns, and this is going to come down to, is Deshaun Watson going to be able to play as good as Joe Flacco did? I mean, once Deshaun Watson went down and Joe Flacco took over, Joe Flacco looked like the better quarterback than Deshaun Watson, and that shouldn't be happening in 2024. Hopefully Nick Chubb can come back from his injury at full health at some point in the season. I do think he is on the PUP list, which means he's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season, but he'll be back eventually, and hopefully he'll be the same Nick Chubb as he always has been. Mari Cooper, one of the better route runners in the league, one of the better separators. They traded for Jerry Jeudy early in the offseason, who can hopefully be a really good wide receiver too with a change of scenery here in Cleveland. Cedric Tillman, former receiver out of Tennessee, I was a pretty big fan of in the draft a couple years ago. So they got good talent, as long as Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson can come back, even somewhat healthy and at least somewhat productive. Myles Garrett on that defense is always going to be one of the better edge rushers in the league. They got such a good cornerback room with Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, and Greg Newsome. Like, that defense has a lot of talent on it, and as long as Deshaun Watson can, get his crap together, I think this could be a very, very good team. But I'm just a little bit hesitant with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Moving on to 14, I got the Los Angeles Rams, and it feels wrong putting him here at 14 because I'm really high on the Rams, but I got to put him at 14 for now. Matthew Stafford's coming back. He's, up there in age, but he's still really, really good. Cooper Kupp is hopefully going to have his first healthy season in the past couple of years. Last time we've seen a healthy Cooper Kupp for a full season, he was a Triple Crown winner, leading the league in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and catches. They also got Puka Nacua, who had one of the best rookie seasons for a receiver of all time. Kyron Williams surprised a lot of people last year by being very, very good. That offensive line is really good. The guards got paid a lot of money, but they're both really, really good. That defense is also, it's good, but not great, especially with the, loss of Aaron Donald due to retirement and the strange trade of Ernest Jones, one of the better young linebackers in the league. But they still got some talent there, especially with the guy they drafted in this last year's draft, and Jared Verse. Brandon Fisk is also a good defensive tackle who is a rookie. Kobe Turner had a really good rookie season last year. Same with Byron Young. Like that they have a really good young defensive line who can be really good, even week 1. Moving on though, we do got the Atlanta Falcons. They're at 13, and they were in the paper a lot with their strange way of building this team. They got Kirk Cousins on a big deal, 4 years. And then they went out and drafted Michael Penix, who is a old quarterback for being a rookie at like 24 years old. They drafted him in the first round instead of trying to get talent to help Kirk Cousins. A little bit strange, but I understand where they were going. But hopefully now that the Falcons have a legit quarterback, guys like Kyle Pitts, Drake London can actually play up to their potential because they actually have a competent player throwing them the ball that's not named Desmond Ridder or Marcus Mariota. So I'm really high on this offense. Hopefully now that what's his name, Arthur Smith isn't their coach, hopefully Bijan Robinson can actually get the ball. I'm a big fan of their new head coach signing, and Raheem Morris, who's that defensive-minded head coach, and that defense has a lot of talent on it now. They traded for Matthew Judon, Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the league, AJ Terrell. Is definitely an up-and-down player, but at his best can be an elite cornerback. Arnold Ebiketie can hopefully show us something this year. Grady Jarrett's still on this team, even though he's a bit up there in age. Like, this team has so much talent on it, and now that they have a good quarterback, they could be, even a Super Bowl contender. I don't quite have them as a Super Bowl contender, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make a run in the playoffs. Coming in at number 12, I got the Cincinnati Bengals. It pains me to put them at 12, but there's just a lot of good teams, and is Joe Burrow going to truly come back healthy after that wrist surgery? Hopefully. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are both back this season. They lost Joe Mixon. Their run game is definitely going to take a hit with Zach Moss being their running back this year, but their offensive line can hopefully keep Joe Burrow healthy. Fingers crossed. That defense is serviceable at best. They lost DJ Reader, who was one of the better run-stopping defensive tackles in the league. Their cornerback room is definitely a little bit concerning. Cam Taylor-Britt is a dog, but besides that, DJ Turner, he had a solid rookie season, but I don't know, being that cornerback too, I'm a little bit scared. But overall, if you got Joe Burrow, a healthy Joe Burrow on your team, you're going to make the playoffs, and that's what I think the Bengals are going to do. Moving on to number 11, I got the Buffalo Bills, and definitely the least talented team Josh Allen has had. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. They brought in Keon Coleman, who's looking like that's going to be their number one option at receiver, alongside Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakur. So, that's a lot of expectations for a rookie cornerback or a rookie receiver who was already raw coming out of college to be that receiver one. But if anyone's going to get the talent out of him, it's going to be Josh Allen. James Cook's coming back, who's a solid running back. That defense also took a hit, but they still got guys like Greg Rousseau. So, again, one of the least talented Bills teams Josh Allen's had to play with, but you got Josh Allen, that's your quarterback position, so you got to be good. He's a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league. Moving on to our top 10, I got the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love had an exceptional first year starting. Didn't start off the greatest, but really ended strong and even made a push in the playoffs. Brought in Josh Jacobs, who's one of the better running backs when healthy. They got a really good young receiving core in Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. They got Luke Musgrave at tight end. They have a really good offense, and it's really young as well. And their defense is also really young. They got Jair Alexander, not necessarily young, but really good. Lucas Van Ness, Kenny Clark, the list goes on and on of how talented this offense is. I wasn't the biggest fan of their first round selection in, what was his first name? Jordan Morgan. But, it's an upgrade at the offensive tackle position. So I just think they're a really good young team, and they're only going to get better. But, I don't know if I want to say that they are true Super Bowl contenders just yet. Moving on to number 9, I got the New York Jets, and with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I think Garrett Wilson's going to go crazy this year. Breece Hall's looking like one of the best young running backs in the league. That defense is absolutely elite with Sauce Gardner, Hassan Reddick if he decides to play. Quentin Williams is arguably the best defensive tackle in the league. Jermaine Johnson's there. Will McDonald is one of the best young pass rushers. Not much when it comes to run defense, but he's able to pin his ears back and rush the passer. Quincy Williams, they're a linebacker. This defense is absolutely loaded, and Aaron Rodgers is going to feast with Garrett Wilson. This team could end up being really, really good as long as Aaron Rodgers is the Aaron Rodgers that we know and love. Moving on to number 8, I got the Dallas Cowboys, and they have just had a weird offseason. They didn't do really anything in free agency. A lot of controversy surrounding, if they're going to retain their key players. Dak Prescott is playing without a contract extension. They barely got CeeDee Lamb extended. Michael Parsons is due for an extension. Jerry Jones is just, every time he's in front of a microphone, he just says something stupid. So, I don't know. They're a weird team, talented team, but there's cracks all along this team, and they could explode after the season. But just solely talking week 1, I think this team is really good. Dak Prescott's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. CeeDee Lamb's a top 5-ish receiver in the league. Michael Parsons is one of the best edge rushers. This team's got a ton of talent. It's just if it's going to be a cohesive unit with Mike McCarthy being the head coach, who's one of the worst head coaches in my opinion. Moving on to number 7, I got the Miami Dolphins, and they just have so much speed, so much offensive firepower. Tua Tagovailoa does have his problems, yes, but he runs this offense to perfection. Tyreek Hill could very well have a 2,000-yard season this year. I know he's really been striving for that the past couple of years. Jalen Waddle's one of the best wide receiver twos and also has elite speed. Devon Achane, when healthy, was one of the best running backs in the league as a rookie. Like, there's just speed, speed, speed everywhere, and defenses have a hard time stopping all that speed. They definitely have their holes on the offensive line, but this offense get the ball out so fast that the offensive line only has to hold up for a couple of seconds. That defense definitely has some holes in it. Jalen Ramsey's there. Their edge rushers are banged up for sure, but Chop Robinson can hopefully step in and, be a good contributor, day one. But when you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane with Tua Tagovailoa just dishing out the ball, it's going to be hard to be that bad. And I do think the Dolphins could be a Super Bowl contender as long as they get over that hump and I guess don't play in cold weather, because the Dolphins never play good in the cold weather playing in Miami. But other than that, I love how they're coached and I love the players on that team, and I'm very high on the Dolphins. Moving on to number 6, I got the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud had one of the best rookie seasons of all time for a quarterback, and he has one of the best receiver cores to throw to now with Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. Brought in Joe Mixon to have a serviceable run game. I wouldn't be surprised if CJ Stroud wins MVP at this point. They also have a really good defense with DeMeco Ryans being the head coach and having his fingerprints all over that defense. Will Anderson won Defensive Rookie of the Year and is looking to have a breakout year too. Derek Stingley is one of the elite young corners in this league. I'm a big fan of Kamari Lassiter, who they drafted this year, and is going to play alongside Derek Stingley. Like, this team is just so good, and it's got so much young talent. It's just incredible, and I can't wait to watch them play this year. Moving on to number 5, I got the Detroit Lions. I think this could be the year that they get over the hump and make the Super Bowl. Jared Goff is, just good enough to be able to get you to a Super Bowl and even win you a Super Bowl. Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the best receivers. Jameson Williams can hopefully have a good season for once. I think he's got all the talent in the world. He just hasn't produced yet in the league. Jahmyr Gibbs was one of the best, running backs as a rookie last year. That offensive line is, at least top 3, and that defense led by Aiden Hutchinson is also very elite. It's just going to be whether Jared Goff can get him over the hump. Ben Johnson's an amazing play caller and gets the most out of Jared Goff, but it is Jared Goff. He's not, he's not a Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. He's none of those guys. But I do think he's just good enough to win you a Super Bowl, and the Lions have the team around him to be able to do so. Moving on to number 4, we got the Baltimore Ravens. And they upgraded this offseason. They were this close to winning or to going to the Super Bowl. They just fell short. But Lamar Jackson's coming back. They brought in Derrick Henry. That rushing game for the Ravens are going to be absolutely elite. I do have questions with their receiving core. Zay Flowers is a super solid player. But besides that, Rashad Bateman's definitely been wishy-washy here as late. And besides that, who do they really have? But on defense, they're really solid with Marlon Humphrey, who's still one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Justin Madubuike, they're in the middle of that defense. Kyle Hamilton's one of the best safeties in the league already. So, talent everywhere. Amazing team. It's just, again, whether they can get over that hump. But with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I think that they might be able to. Coming in at number 3, cracking the top 3, I do have the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts is definitely going to have to prove it this season. Nick Sirianni brought in 2 amazing coordinators, and Kellen Moore and then Vic Fangio. So hopefully, because that was what the Eagles struggled with, was their play calling and coordinators in general. And Nick Sirianni isn't going to be some coach to step in and steer the ship. He's just not that type of coach. I think he's one of the worst coaches in the league. But when you have 2 really good coordinators, I don't think you really have to worry about much. Jalen Hurts is a top quarterback in this league. I know he's getting a lot of hate now, but I still think he's definitely a top 10 quarterback, borderline top 5. A.J. Brown's one of the best receivers in the league. Devontae Smith is also one of the best receivers in the league. They brought in Saquon Barkley from the Giants, and I think he's going to have an amazing season behind an actual good offensive line for once. And I know they lost Jason Kelsey, but Cam Jurgens has been the future at center for a while now. Lane Johnson's still elite at right tackle. Jordan Mailata is also elite at left tackle. So they still have a really good offensive line, even though they don't have Jason Kelsey anymore. And then they also brought in talent on that defense. Their biggest struggle last year was their secondary. And what do? They bring in my top 2 cornerbacks from this year's draft, and Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Darius Slay is, hopefully still got some juice in his legs. He is getting up there in age. But yeah, they brought in Devin White as well, who could be a really good linebacker for him. Although I do believe he's out. He's going to be out week 1 with an ankle injury. But regardless, Jalen Carter's, one of the best defensive tackles already. They brought in Bryce Huff. If we're going strictly off of talent, the Eagles probably have the most talented roster. It's just, are they going to be able to put it together, or is Nick Sirianni going to get out coached in the playoffs? Moving on to number 2, I got the San Francisco 49ers. The question all offseason was if Brandon Ayuk was going to stay or not, and he eventually did sign a contract for, I believe, $30 million a year. Deebo Samuel's still there. George Kittle's still there. Trent Williams is hopefully going to be back. I know he's holding out for a contract as well. They brought in Ricky Pearsall, although I doubt he's going to play because he got shot in the chest, but still a really good young receiver. Christian McCaffrey's still there. Everyone's still there on that defense for the most part. Again, the 49ers are right up there with the Eagles on, just talent in general. And it really helps when you have a borderline elite quarterback. And yes, I'm going to say it, borderline elite quarterback with Brock Purdy on an absolute cheap deal, below $1 million a year. So that defense and that roster in general is just absolutely loaded around Brock Purdy. And same thing, are they going to be able to get over that hump? They made the Super Bowl last year. They just couldn't get over that hump, and they were so close. But I still think they have the team to be able to repeat what they did last year and hopefully even maybe win it this year. But at number 1, I couldn't disrespect them. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes had one of his worst surrounding casts in his whole career, and he still was able to win a Super Bowl. They went out and brought in 2 of the best deep threats in the league with Hollywood Brown, and then they drafted Xavier Worthy, who broke the 40-yard dash record. And then they still have Travis Kelce to be that chains mover, and they have Rashee Rice, who can be that short to intermediate threat. Isaiah Pacheco is one of the hardest running backs in the league. He runs so hard. He's, one of the better running backs, one of the more underrated running backs in my opinion at this point. They also look like they got another stud in Carson Steele, the running back out of UCLA, who is also just an absolute bowling ball. That defense, although they did lose L'Jarius Sneed, they still have an elite defense with Chris Jones in the middle. Trent McDuffie is one of the best cornerbacks in the league in my opinion. I'm a massive fan of Trent McDuffie. So yeah, you can't discredit the Chiefs. If they were able to win a Super Bowl last year with that roster, I mean, it almost feels inevitable that they're going to be able to three-peat with this roster. But yeah, that's going to do it. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this is subject to change and this will move throughout the weeks. But as of week 1, these are my power rankings. So let me know if you like the video and consider subscribing if you like the content. With that being said, I'm the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.